Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 6. My guest today is BJJ big man, Jesse Byers.
It's time to high five and fist bump. A Jiu Jitsu podcast for the everyday grappler. Let's talk subs. Let's talk positions. Let's talk dominating the mats. Welcome to the Let's Talk Jiu Jitsu podcast with Raymond Terrence.
My guest today is a BJJ practitioner, and I told you guys this from the start that Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu is a podcast for the everyday grappler, and I promised you guys that I wouldn't just have world champion black belts, I wasn't just going to have brown belts, purple belts, blue belts, and I know what you're thinking. You're saying, Ray, don't say it. Are you about to say you have a white belt sitting in front of you right now and I'm going to have to listen to a white belt talk for the next hour? You are right, ladies and gentlemen. I do have a white belt sitting in front of me. They have something to say too, and a lot of it is very, very valid. Some of it isn't, but a lot of it is. I am with Jesse Byers. Let's talk Jiu-Jitsu.
White belts are people too, Ray.
White belts are people too.
Okay.
White belts are people too. Thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
I really want to get into a show like this so that way we could talk about jiu-jitsu in a different way, from a perspective from someone who hasn't been doing jiu-jitsu very long, maybe a little bit about what you're going through and what your expectations are and what your process was to get there.
For someone who gets his ass kicked on a regular basis.
For someone who gets their ass kicked on a regular basis. I'm a purple belt and I'm still getting my ass kicked, so don't worry about it. So Jesse, tell me a little bit about how long you've been doing jiu-jitsu for and how you got into it.
Okay. I guess my first foray into the world of jiu-jitsu was probably about 6 years ago. It was very brief. It was maybe a month or two.
I was about to say, if you've been a white belt for 6 years and you've been training for 6 years,
then I'm a total fucking loser.
We've got issues.
No, it was very brief. It was about like a month and a half, maybe 2 months. And my instructor at the time was actually teaching out of the warehouse of the place that I worked. But then I stopped working there, and so it was a bit of a conflict, I guess. I didn't exactly leave the place on the best of terms, so I stopped going there. And then over the years, I guess I would try, other schools, like here and there, a month here, a few weeks there, and then finally, about a year and a half ago, I said, okay, Jess, it's time. You got to do it. Like, stop screwing around. And so it's been about a year and a half now, consistently. So I guess really, like, it's been a year and a half.
A year and a half of jiu-jitsu.
A year and a half of regular ass kickings.
Okay, great. Awesome. So tell me a little bit, did you know exactly where you wanted to go for jiu-jitsu, or did you shop around to look at different schools, different programs? Did you make phone calls to see what prices were like? Like, give me your thought process about when you said, okay, I'm getting back into jiu-jitsu full time. Did you know exactly where to go, or?
Well, when I came back to the school where I'm at now, I knew right away that I was going to go there. But before that, it was just, I'd hear about a school and I'd say, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. I'll pop in, see what they say, see what the prices are, see if I can get a free class, and then, sign up for a month and see where it goes. Most of it was pretty okay. Some of it wasn't great, I went to one place where, after starting, I realized that they pretty much only did no-gi. And then I was like, maybe not. So, like I tried GB for about a month and a half, and it was okay. But I was like, well, when you just don't, like, it doesn't click, you don't feel it. And then, so when I started back where I am now, it really fell into place. Like, it didn't take long. Like, when it just feels right?
It just felt right.
Yeah, exactly. There was more camaraderie. I found it was more of a family vibe. So I liked it. It was good. And
what do you find was the hardest thing to get used to when you started jiu-jitsu? Your first classes, your first month, your first 2 months. What was the hardest thing to kind of get through?
Oh, well,
that's probably a loaded question.
That's a very loaded question. Because, I have so many things to pick from that sucked very early on. Let's get it out on the table. I'm a big guy. I've lost a little bit of weight.
How much do you weigh?
Right now, I'm probably about 325. So I've lost about 45 pounds. So when I first started, I think I remember looking at the scale and I was about 367, and then I was like, no, you need to get your fat ass in shape, buddy. So that was a definite issue. Like when I first started, so stamina was a real issue. I could do I would usually, like by the end of class when we were doing rolls, I would do a roll, rest, do another roll, then rest. I was doing maybe 2 or 3 rolls a class. Now I can honestly say I can do, 3 or 4 rolls in a row. So that was an issue. Flexibility was a huge one. So a lot of moves I either couldn't do them properly or had to modify them, do them the big boy way, like I'll give you an example. There's on our day 2 sequence, there's it goes from I think it's a close guard sweep, and then it goes to is it that one? Yeah, and a close guard sweep then to a double ankle sweep. And for the longest time I couldn't do the double ankle. First, if the person wasn't close enough to me, I couldn't reach their ankles because my belly got in the way. And then if they were kind enough to give me their ankles, once I swept them, my belly got in the way and I couldn't grab their collar fast enough. So I was just like a walrus trying to make my way to top position. So that didn't work. So that was an issue. And yeah, those were probably my 2 biggest issues. Big boy problems.
And do you find yourself when you are or when you did start rolling, were there positions where you felt more comfortable in being a bigger guy?
On top,
obviously. Okay.
Obviously. Well, okay. Yeah, definitely on top. Being on the bottom, especially at first, I would probably say that I was claustrophobic when I first started. And there would be times where I'd have people on top of me and I would just tap out of sheer panic, So like that was a big issue for like probably the first easily month, probably 2 months, where like I just hated it. So like the way I've had to break it down, over the past year and a half is I've never tried to get too ahead of myself. So I figure I have a very specific problem. So I'm like, let me work on this specific problem. Sometimes it's a move. Sometimes it's just a state of being, like being claustrophobic. So I'm like, okay, let me just have as many people on top of me as possible. And let me get comfortable with this, so probably my first battle was being comfortable with being incredibly uncomfortable, and that was probably,
That was probably the hardest part.
That was the hardest part.
And I think everyone goes through that when they start in jiu-jitsu. I'm not a huge guy myself. I'm I want to say 85, but I'm more like 190.
Okay.
I guess I walk around at 190. But when I started jiu-jitsu, I was I think everyone's in the same boat. I think a lot of us do feel that claustrophobic feeling where we're on the bottom and people are smothering our face. I remember I actually got that back when I was a blue belt. So I felt it when I started when I was a white belt. Mm-hmm. And then I got through it, I would say, in the first month and a half, just got it out of my system, and then start realizing, hey, I don't want to be on the bottom. I'm going to start messing these guys up on top because I really didn't enjoy being on the bottom. And now that's all I do. I love being on the bottom. But when I was a blue belt, I remember it coming back, and it only came back for a few weeks. And I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, and if you have, please message me. I'm really curious to kind of follow a little bit more on that topic. But when I was a blue belt, for a certain reason, on the bottom, I started getting that feeling of like I'm
like
not
that shortness of breath where you're like, just get the hell off of me.
Exactly. But you'd think I had been doing, a few years of jiu-jitsu as a white belt, and then as a blue belt, you think like I'm totally through it, and like I already worked through those problems, I guess.
Yeah.
But I felt it again. It only lasted a few weeks, and then it just went away all over again.
I got it again because, like I said, like where I train, I'm pretty much the biggest guy. Well, I was the biggest guy for a while. A few bigger guys have joined up since, but so a lot of times it was having smaller guys on top of me. So I got used to that. But then I figured it's not always going to be like that. So then a few bigger guys joined. So then I had to kind of go through it again with them. And, I guess it was a little bit of karma too. It made me appreciate what I was doing to other people if I ever got on top. So, I mean, maybe I guess I was feeling a little too empathetic. And at some point, I actually started to hold back a little bit. One of the things when I first started, and like people would get on my case all the time. They'd be like, Jess, you're so big. Just get on top and put your weight down. Just put your weight down. And first of all, there were 2 things wrong with that. A, if I can get on top, fine. That's good for me. But I'm not learning anything from there. You know, as a big guy, if I'm, going up against someone who's like, 150 pounds, I don't even necessarily need to know a submission. I can just fucking lay on top of them for an hour and they're not going to go anywhere.
And squish their face.
And squish their face. So that's not very productive or constructive in my, jiu-jitsu journey. So that was issue one. The other was, I need to get better from the bottom.
Right.
So I'd have people like, actually there was the other issue too was at some point I started to feel bad, like people, like, I'll be honest, like I've had people like actively avoid rolling with me. Like I remember once I was actually reasonably offended by it. I was because I'm a white belt, so I'm last in line, so I'm like, last picked at dodgeball kind of thing. So there was it came down to like me and one other guy, and the other guy, I forget he was a blue belt or purple belt or whatever, obviously smaller than me, and I was the only guy left, and he basically just said, I'm going to take a break. I was like, really? Like, I get it, I'm fat, but fuck, like, cut me some slack. Like, you have to, treat me like a friggin' leper. Yeah. So, and I've had that before. Like, I've had people like actively avoid rolling with me, even though I'm a white belt. So there's it's twofold. It's the learning. So I've spent probably the last 6 or 7 months really trying to practice from the bottom. And I've even had people recently be like, Jess, what are you doing? Why are you sitting on your ass? Why don't you just like charge and whatever? And I'm like, well, yeah, I could do that, but I'm not going to learn anything,
And I think people that are avoiding you, I think that is a situation that they're avoiding a problem that they're eventually going to have to solve, right?
Yeah.
So they're avoiding it now, but at one point in time, you're no longer going to be that white belt. Yeah. And you're creeping up that line, and eventually they're going to have to roll with you, and eventually they're going to have to figure out, and if it's not you, it will be somebody else, whether they're a little bit bigger than you or a little bit smaller than you. They're going to have to realize that one day I'm going to get stuck with a bigger guy, and I might as well start learning the technique and how to get them off of me and how to get a bigger guy off of me and figure it out now, because it's not going to get any better.
I've even had guys try to bargain with me. I have a guy that I roll with, I guess on a semi-regular basis. Like I usually meet him up on Sundays for the open mat, and he'll come to roll with me. And if he hears this, he'll know I'm talking about him. I don't care, it's funny, but he'll literally come and start the roll, and he'll be like, okay, well, you need to practice your half guard from the bottom, so I'll just start on top. I'm like, well, no, that's not how that works. But he just, okay, whatever, just do what you want. I don't give a shit.
And do you find that people are, when they do roll with you, I'm sure you get different types of rolls, but knowing that you're a bigger guy, do guys automatically flip the switch and go 110% on
right
you?
Away. Right away. Right away. They like, I can practically see the steam coming out of their nose. I'm like they're about to charge, and it's like, so I wait for it. Like some guys will like try and shove me over. Some guys, like no one will ever start in their guard anymore. Like they actively try to avoid it. Like today I rolled with someone, and it was my last roll. It was my last roll of the day, and he even said, he's like, I was trying to get away from you. I was trying to avoid you, but I'm like, I'm last in line, so you got to pick me. And then he's like, I can't let you get on top. I can't let you. Well, I'm like, I apologize in advance if I do.
Yeah, well, I definitely know that feeling of rolling with bigger guys and not wanting to be on the bottom. But again, you get to a certain point where it's not that you don't want to be on the bottom with a bigger guy. It's like you have to work through it. I think it's more of a fear than anything else. It's just your technique isn't up to par yet to be able to deal with that. I mean, you see a lot of, I was about to say black belts, but it doesn't really matter what belt you are. If you're rolling with a bigger guy and you're confident and you've dealt with a bigger guy before, you will start on your butt. I mean, you can start on your back, and you will get the sweep, and you will get on top, and you will get top half or mount or whatnot. Yeah. It's just because you've been through it and you know what you need to do to get there. And I think people with a little less experience, right off the bat, they say, okay, I'm going to roll with this guy. I've already rolled with him before. It didn't go my way last time, so I'm not going to do the same thing. I'm not just going to sit in my butt and pull guard, because last time my face got smashed, so I have to end up on top. Do you get the same reaction when you roll with women during class?
You mean, do they avoid like me getting in their guard?
Sure.
Yeah, usually. Except there's one girl at our school who's tremendous. She's amazing. I rolled with, to be honest, in the year and a half that I've been there, I've only rolled with her twice. And I rolled with her about 2 weeks ago. And her game is guard game. So she just pulled guard right away, and she kept switching from full guard to De La Hiva to open guard to 500,000 other things that I don't know the name of. and she was tough, man. And she, like, I could not, it took like probably about 4 minutes for me to even get close to attempting to pass her guard. But other than that, most other women that I've rolled with, yeah, they'll avoid it. And I become aware. I guess I'm very self-aware of how big I am. So I guess I try to be, gentlemanly in a sense. So I'll start on my butt and I'll whatever. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think you're doing something that a lot of instructors do. You're adapting yourself to the person that you're rolling with.
Yeah.
Maybe not just instructors, people that have a little bit more experience. And I spoke about this on another show where we were talking about, having a new person coming into your club and just smashing them is not encouraging them to do jiu-jitsu.
No, they'll never come back.
Exactly. So I think
I rolled with a girl the other day on the weekend, this weekend. And she's a newer white belt, and so whatever, we started, and I could tell she was like not sure how to deal with my size, and B, she was getting stuck in a few places. So I was just kind of like, okay, so you're here, do this, do that, and maybe that's a little bit pompous on my part since I'm still a white belt, but people have done it for me, and I've found it helpful, even from other white belts, if they can give me pointers here and there. It's, I try to be as nice as I can to everybody,
but at a certain point, the niceness has to stop.
I don't go super easy. Like like there's this couple that train, it's a husband and wife, and I've rolled with both of them, and I don't quote unquote go easy on her or anything like that. We have good rolls together. I'm not gonna like flip her around like a rag doll. I do have to be aware that I'm bigger than most people. I'm stronger than most people, and I'm not trying to give her a broken back or anything like that. But I'll practice my positions from the bottom, and I'll go hard and I'll go rough. But it's we got to be polite, and that's not just for women, but for for in both cases.
Because these are your training partners, and you're going to have to see them
exactly.
next class,
I have to see these people every day.
In the changing room too.
It's funny. Like I get different reactions from a lot of people. Like some people will just be like, "Okay, let's go for it. Like I'm ready for you, big boy. Let's just go." And then some people are like, "Nah, I don't really want to do this." So
And do you find yourself being tense during your rolls? Because I know every white belt, everyone goes through the same thing. Every time you roll, everything stiffens up, and you turn into basically the Incredible Hulk. Do you find that things have changed over your
when I first started, I was super stiff, and I would get really frustrated because, let's say, if I was fortunate enough to get to a dominant position, I would get super frustrated with myself because then I'd start trying to go over all the potential moves that I may or may not know, and I'd just have a total brain fart, and I'd be like, well, I don't know what to do from here, so I'll just stay here, and I'd tense up and I get super frustrated. Now, my style of rolling is probably pretty lazy. I got to conserve my energy. So I don't go super, balls to the wall right out of the get-go. But yeah, no, I'm a lot less tense. I'm more relaxed, and I guess I can flow a little better, relatively speaking, for the noob that I am.
One thing that you did point out was the fact that you're willing to learn. And I think that changes the game completely. When somebody walks into a school, whether it be he's been there for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, that you're willing to learn what isn't going well, right? A lot of white belts will stay in this little bubble, right? Because that's all they know. Mm-hmm. And it very rarely will get out of that bubble. And when they do start getting out of that bubble and start learning new things and being open to learn new things, that's when you see true progression. Mm-hmm. You kind of mentioned it, that you would sit on your butt, that you would play guard, that you won't always use your weight, won't always be on top. Yeah. That means that you're willing to learn something more than just what your physical capabilities are.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a philosophy to it. Like if you're just gonna quote unquote take the easy way out or do what you know the best, then you're not going to progress from that point. But if you take the time, like for me, I've had, you know, obstacles with my weight, obstacles with technique and this and that. And I don't get it. I mean, I guess part of the problem, I know what you're saying though. Cause I've seen a lot of, you know, white belts when they first start. But I guess it's part of the dynamic of the role. I mean, at its core, it's a competition, right? Even though it's just in class situation, it's still a competition, quote unquote. So their first instinct is to win, you know? So they just kind of instinct takes over, and myself included, even sometimes still, and you just go, you know, nuts, and you try and, you know, win at all costs, and you do whatever you can. But if you acknowledge that there's a philosophy behind it, for me, I try to break it down. I try to, like before when I was saying, try to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, try to work on the techniques that I'm shit at, which there are many, you know, like, you know, like for example, for the longest time, people were telling me, oh, Jess, you know, you should play the half guard game, play the half guard game, play deep half. You're going to be great. That's going to be your game. I was like, well, okay, well, sure. I'll try it. Whatever. Guess what? I'm terrible at deep half. I have tried it many, many times. And I finally realized one of the problems that I have is that when you get to the deep half position, you know, you're kind of supposed to roll out of it, or, you know, roll with the other person's leg or whatever. Or I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm going to get yelled at. But anyways, part of the problem with that is, yes, I'm trying to roll with the other person's leg, but I'm also trying to roll with my stomach, which tends to get in the way. So although their intentions were good in telling me that I should play this position, I'm a fat ass and I get in my own way half the time.
You have to do what your body is allowing you to do in the moment.
Yeah.
Right? Eventually you will get to other things and do a little bit more and expand your game and this and that. But at some point you have to say, my body is only capable of doing this. I would love to do crazy things with my legs. I would love to invert all day long. I don't even think you know the amount of videos that I watch on a regular basis. I go into YouTube and I YouTube how to invert from bottom half, how to invert from guard, how to invert if I weighed this amount of weight. All I want to know is how to invert. I think it looks super cool, and especially because I really want to be able to invert to go into straight leg locks and things like that. But I'm telling you that my body has taken a toll, from karate and even from Jiu Jitsu. I'm 38. I'm not 20 years old. So I'm pretty sure I won't be able to invert 100 times, you know, during my rolls. Mm-hmm. But just to know how to do it is great. But I know that right now, I just want to know how to do it, how to get there. Mm-hmm. It's not something that I'll do every roll, probably, just because my physical capabilities are not there. I know that, you know, my neck is stiff.
Do you have a lot of injuries from karate, or is it just like wear and tear?
I'll be honest with you. When it comes to karate, I've dislocated fingers, I've cracked a few ribs, and that was like the bulk of my injuries. And then 5 years ago, I was teaching a karate class, and I went for a yokogiri, a side kick. Okay. And my bottom foot ended up sticking to the mat instead of pivoting. So it stayed put instead of rotating.
So you rolled your ankle?
So no, I tore my MCL.
Oh, that sucks.
Out of nowhere. Literally, I had been doing karate for 25 years, and literally just like little injuries, annoying injuries. Yes, they put you out for a little bit, but nothing major. My foot got stuck, like it was probably just the friction of my foot on the mat. And when it wanted to pivot and my heel needed to turn towards my opponent, it just didn't. And it just stayed flat. And it was just during a normal class. I was doing like a light sparring session, and it just happened. And do
you need to be hyper flexible for karate?
You don't need to be hyper flexible for karate. I think you need to have some level of flexibility, and we do a big portion of class that is flexibility. I don't teach karate anymore.
And what I mean, did it for a long time. Does it translate well from like one style to the next? From like, let's say when you, because I actually, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Go for it.
Because you're
it's my podcast, but sure, yeah, go for it.
Like, I'm taking over, buddy. Okay, like being a karate black belt, right? Did you find, I mean, you were technically already, well, not technically, you were already a sensei. So having to start a whole new art from scratch.
It helped.
Was it hard at first to go from sensei to back to the beginning?
No, that wasn't the hard part. The hardest part was starting into something that was really night and day from what I was used to.
Okay.
I thought that standing up, I was like a superstar and like no one can beat me. And then when I went into jiu-jitsu, it was basically starting something from scratch. I think it's because I had the discipline and I had the knowledge that, hey, you have to start out from scratch and work your way up, that it never even crossed my mind. Like I never really had those issues of saying, oh man,
You checked your ego.
Yeah, like I have to put on a white belt. I think that's just based on experience. But I think the flexibility is a big part in any martial art. Doesn't matter what you do, and not even in martial arts, in life in general. Just being able to be semi-flexible, to be able to touch your big toe if you needed to, you know, putting on your shoes in the morning and this and that. And especially for jiu-jitsu, you know, when we talk about you know, lying on your back and having someone try to pass your guard, right? There's a drill that we did maybe about 2 weeks ago where our professor ended up having us open our legs. So we were lying on our back, opening our legs, basically making a big V with our legs.
Okay.
And he was trying to explain that making a big V with your legs and just having your knees semi-close to your elbows and protecting your shoulders to your hips, that you're making it difficult for the person to pass your guard. And he was saying you don't need to even to be super flexible to be able to do that. You just need to be able to reduce the space between the person that's in front of you and your shoulders, because their goal is to get around your legs and to get either to from your hips to your shoulders. Okay. So I think flexibility is a really big part in jiu-jitsu. I don't think that a lack of flexibility should stop you from doing jiu-jitsu, because I know tons of guys who are not flexible in any possible way and they have amazing jiu-jitsu. I think it might just limit you into the amount of things that you can actually do during a roll. So, you know, if I needed, for some odd reason, if the guy was stacking me, right, and I had gone him in a, you know, super tight armbar or a tight triangle, and he starts stacking me hardcore, and I don't have the flexibility to have my legs go behind my head and have my feet touch the ground, which I'm pretty sure you can probably relate to that a little bit.
Actually, to be honest, my legs are actually, even when I first started, I mean, I played hockey for a long time when I was younger, and I played goaltender, so I naturally have flexible legs. So that wasn't too much for me. It was my shoulders. Like I could there was a period when I first started, probably about 6 months, where my shoulders were killing me on a daily basis. And I would ask my instructor, who's also a physio, and I'd be like, is there something that I'm doing wrong? Like, help me. Like, for the love of God. Like, I'm so sore all the time. And that's where I had a lot of flex, is my arms, my shoulders, my neck a little bit. My legs have definitely gotten better. Like, I even notice on a daily basis, just like, you know, putting on pants, you know, I notice, ooh, this is a little more fluid than it used to be.
Do you find are you doing anything different to lose weight? Because you spoke about losing 45 pounds just by doing jiu-jitsu, which is like, congrats to you. Like, that's a lot of weight to lose. Are you eating healthy to be able to also lose weight, or are you strictly doing jiu-jitsu? Are you doing any other sports? Are you training in anything else? Are you weightlifting? Are you doing cardio?
I occasionally weightlift. I'd like to say that I do it more often than I actually do, but I don't. Okay. So jiu-jitsu is probably I guess 90% of my physical activity. What I did do way differently though is I completely overhauled my diet. I mean, I had a terrible diet. I was gonna try and be modest for a second, but no, I had a terrible diet. So I actually switched to a keto diet probably about 3 months ago. I want to say maybe 4. And I've tried other diets in the past and whatever, but this I find is the one that has helped me the most. I feel the best. Like, I can, like, if I come off of it for a couple of days, I can already feel like the inflammation in my body going up. I feel less flexible. I feel more weighed down. I feel like, you know, and when I'm stick to it regularly, I feel fantastic. The weight just pours off of me. So yeah, that's what helped. I mean, like, cause I did jiu-jitsu probably for about 8 or 9 months without really losing. I mean, I lost maybe 10 pounds, but it really all came off probably in the last 3 months. I'm going to say in large part to my diet.
Yeah, I think when we talk about weight loss and we talk about jiu-jitsu and we talk about nutrition, everybody is completely different. You know, a lot of people will listen into different podcasts. They'll listen to nutrition stuff. They'll read reviews. They'll read articles, blogs, and so on. You have to understand that there's not one formula for everyone. There's not one magical solution. You were mentioning keto diet. keto diet's good if it works for you.
Exactly.
But
It's
it
not
will
for
not
everybody.
work for everybody.
Like, for example, I also do intermittent fasting every day. I won't eat before noon. So like if I'm doing a noon class, I'm doing it on an empty stomach. And I've tried to do it the other way around. I've tried to eat before, have a healthy breakfast or whatever. And I feel worse, even if it's healthy food. So like that works for me. Other people can't do it. I've spoken to other people who the keto diet just totally does not work for them, and they need carbs and they need to eat more often. And so if it works for you, then fine.
Because I cannot do, and I think I'm a good example of that, I cannot do the intermittent fasting. So I tried to do it. I did it for a month. So what I wanted to do is give it a trial and see how my body would react to it. If it reacted in a positive way, then why not? Let's go balls to the walls and just do it. What happened was I started having some stomach problems. And because I was so used to eating in the morning, what happened was I wasn't sending any food to my stomach, and it was irritating my stomach, the fact that no food was going in.
Really?
So I ended up going to the doctors because I was getting these huge stomach cramps, and I knew it was related to me not eating in the morning or something of the sorts. I just wanted to rule out the fact that it wasn't something serious and that it was really that lifestyle change that kind of led me to, not feel well. So I did a bunch of tests. I ended up going to a clinic where they made me drink this white liquid, and then they do a scan of like your chest, your stomach, and it kind of shows everything and if it's going down properly. And I definitely have some type of IBS where I have to be very careful with what I eat because I have a very sensitive stomach. So intermittent.
It's also closely related to stress, I think, too. IBS.
It is. It is. There is a stressful. I have to say I'm not a very stressed person. I have ways to kind of keep myself calm. But the intermittent fasting, the doctor was like, you should not do it. So it's not. It will not work for you because of your other condition that you have.
Well, because fasting in and of itself is a stress.
There you go.
So it's
exactly
your body was just reacting poorly. Like for me, I haven't eaten since 7 o'clock last night.
I would be on the floor crying.
I'm
right
fine. I'm like I could I'll probably eat when I leave here, but I'm not uncomfortable. I'm not fine. I haven't even thought about it all day.
So do you eat before going to jiu-jitsu?
Never.
It's funny, eh? I ask a lot of people this question, and everyone always gives me mixed answers. There's people who love to eat before jiu-jitsu, like an hour and a half before jiu-jitsu, and other people that can't do it. I cannot eat before jiu-jitsu. It doesn't settle. I'll eat, go do jiu-jitsu, and then I just won't feel well.
I feel like total crap.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever eaten like before training was a couple of times I've done back-to-back classes, like a kickboxing class and then a jiu-jitsu class. I'll have like a granola bar or something in between so I don't pass out. But beyond that, no, nothing. I actually feel worse if I do.
So after jiu-jitsu, how long do you wait before you eat?
Depends. I mean, like today I finished class at 1:30, and I mean, what time is it now? It's like almost 4. I could easily go another hour or two without eating. So that whole thing that where you need to eat within half an hour of working out, or lose all your gains or whatever.
Right.
Who gives a shit? Like it. It's. I don't concern myself with that all that much. Maybe I should pay more attention to it, but whatever. I mean, I'm not trying to bulk up or put on lots of muscle or anything.
You have different goals.
I have different goals. Right. So I mean, I know at this point I've been able to really kind of map out and gauge how my metabolism works. So I can go long times with that. I mean, I've even had times where I'll fast for a couple of days, like, where and training while I'm doing it. And I actually feel better. Like I did it a few months ago. Like I fasted for 2 days. I trained the first day, didn't eat afterwards, went back the next day, trained again. And I was actually more energetic the next day. And then even after class, I waited like another 2-3 hours and then finally ate.
Wow.
I gorged like a maniac, but so no, it doesn't bother me.
And how often do you find yourself training jiu-jitsu every week now? Do you do 5, 6, 3, 4, 1, 2?
I try to do, I guess my average is probably about 3 or 4.
3 or 4 times a week?
Yeah. I'd like to do more. There was a period where I was doing, 5 days a week, pretty consistently. I try not to do less than 3. Sometimes, life gets in the way and I can only do 2, which really upsets me because I'll be honest with you, like aside from the physical benefits of jiu-jitsu, if I can say, like I as a person, I tend to philosophize things a lot, generally speaking, in all areas of my life. And, so jiu-jitsu is not just, a pastime or a hobby or a way to get healthier, but it's, there's a philosophy behind it. And there's, first and foremost for me, it's a self-defense, thing, but it's also like a way of, like, I find it very cathartic, and if I go too long without doing it, I start to feel a little more stressed. I start to feel a little more pent up. I start to feel a little more even aggressive. Like it's very emotionally purging for me. I mean, I'll tell you, if we can get a little heavy for a second, I'll be honest with you. A few weeks ago, I went through something that wasn't great. My wife and I, okay, we'll put it on the table. My wife had a miscarriage. And
sorry to hear that.
Thank you. It sucked, and it was so like.
This is where everyone turns off the podcast. By the way,
yeah,
they're not talking about jiu-jitsu. He's talking about his personal life. Let's just shut it off now.
So I'll go through it quick. So I took a day off, whatever, and then like 2 days after it happened, I was just, the first day I was sad, and then I woke up one day and I was just pissed off. Like I was just really angry, to the point where like I didn't know, like if someone would cross me on the street, I might punch them in the face. Like I was that angry. So I was like, I need to go to a class. I gotta go. And I got there. I was a little bit late, and I saw two guys. They were practicing the 4 points sequence. Taking the back and then choking from the back. I was like, okay, well let me jump in there, and just so I was like, okay, you guys do it to me, and just in my mind, I was like, sink in that choke and don't stop until I tell you to. And like it got real tight, and I was like, okay, just keep going. And I finally tapped, but then already I could start to feel it like release. And then we had some rolls, and I rolled aggressively, but well, and whatever. And then by the end of the class, I was sitting alone in the dressing room, and I almost burst into tears, not because I was sad or upset, but just because of how relieved I felt after doing it,
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. So something that you probably don't know, and I'm very open about. My wife has had 5 miscarriages in the past 5 years. So my wife is now due. She's due in a week. So
congratulations, brother.
Thank you. But it took 5 years to get here.
Okay.
We went through everything from A to Z. So we did miscarriages. We went through the shots. We did everything, and we just couldn't get pregnant.
Okay.
And I have to say, whenever that happened, I did the exact same thing. It was, I need to go to jiu-jitsu. And she was very understanding. It wasn't, it happened and like, ciao, bye, I'm gone, I'm going to jiu-jitsu. It was
like
just
therapy.
Yeah. So it was, that was my way of coping with something that wasn't going well in my life. And I just needed to get to jiu-jitsu. I just needed to see people that I see on a regular basis, but people that I don't have to sit there and talk about personal life. I just wanted to go do jiu-jitsu. I want to do some rounds. I want to overexert myself. I just want people to tap me. I want to be sweaty. I just want to be completely destroyed at the end of it, just to let everything go. And if it's that, or if it's, a different stress in your life, whether it be work and you have a crappy boss and he keeps yelling at you and you hate your job, or your girlfriend sucks, your boyfriend sucks, it doesn't really matter. We all go through things that affect us in different ways. I think jiu-jitsu is a very good outlet for people who have trouble expressing themselves verbally, and how to kind of just unload our body with all that like negative stuff. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is a very good outlet to say, I'm going there, and like it's just all going to come out. But it's all going to come out in my jiu-jitsu. It's not going to be
constructive.
It's constructive. I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to bawl my eyes out for 2 hours. I'm not going to be angry at the world. I'm going to let everything out, but I'm going to do it in a different way.
Exactly. Like that day, I felt like however I'm feeling right now, I'm not helping myself, and I'm not helping anybody else. So let's deal with it, and then we'll move on. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm grateful to jiu-jitsu for a lot of reasons, and that's a big one.
Yeah. When it comes to position submissions, we'll change the vibe a little bit and try to get a little bit more positive here.
Sorry, folks, I got heavy for a second.
Even though what we were talking about is very positive, what we were talking about giving people an outlet, right, to things going bad, it is still positive. What do you find yourself struggling with when it comes to positions right now? So if you had one position that you absolutely wanted to work on now, your next step as a white belt, what would that be?
Probably my half guard.
Bottom half guard?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So Yeah, like from my top half guard is pretty good. I've submitted people from there. I'm actually pretty decent at passing guards and passing half guards, but my bottom half guard, I still feel very uncomfortable with it. People pass it all the time. I've tried different ways. I've tried deep half. I've tried putting in a knee shield. I've tried, I've had some success with the knee shield, but it's all about positioning. If I get too far to one side, then they just take my back, or if I'm not far enough, then they just, get out of my half guard and take side control. So if I had to say, like, I've worked on my guard a lot. I'm not really good at submitting from guard, but at the very least, a lot of my game is learning, for me, is slowing the pace down. So I've learned to find certain positions where I can slow the roll down to my pace, and then I'm like, okay, I can work from here. So I've done that with guard. I don't really submit from guard, but I can hold people there. But from half guard, forget it. It's terrible. Like, it's the pits, like what I've tried recently, what I've, and I guess people will, it's going to sound very same old for a lot of people. What finally clicked in my head and I started doing was just get the underhook.
I was just about to ask you that. What fundamentals do you find are sticking in your head? And there you go. So for you, it's the underhook.
And because I as a big guy, like I'm always thinking, I can sweep. I'll just, from wherever I am, I'll just sweep people. At the very least, I'm big, and sometimes it works, but not always. So, and I was having that trouble from half guard, and I was always people were just getting out of it and taking my side control, and I'm comfortable from there because I'm not worried about people doing, I can just relax there. I don't mind people being on top of me. But I started, it probably clicked maybe about a month ago. I was rolling at it. Okay, let me really try and get, and not just like a deep underhook. And I went in all the way, and I was able to hold on and then slide my bottom leg out. And then I think I knocked the person over and took side control or something. But that was like a really, like a light bulb went on kind of moment, and I was like, huh. So this whole underhook thing is not total bullshit. And it's just, I find a lot of my journey has just been a lot of little moments like that where I'll finally, after months of people, trying to drill it into my head, it'll click and I'll do it for the first time and I'm like, huh.
It's doing something.
There's something to this whole jiu-jitsu thing. And so, yeah, but that's probably my worst position. And I try to work on it a lot.
Have you competed yet?
No, I have not. I'm still on the fence about that. I've thought about it. I'm sure that it would be fun. I'm a competitive person. I've played sports my whole life, and I'm sure that it would be a lot of fun. Am I a little bit afraid? Maybe.
But that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Like, nerves, they sharpen you up a little bit, I guess, but I'm still on. I think ultimately I'd like to. I think I'm procrastinating a little bit though. I mean, first and foremost, it's not my main motivation for doing it. It's my main motivation is probably, for self-defense, and, just general, becoming a better person and all that crap. But, I'll probably do it at some point.
I definitely suggest it. As a white belt, I competed like there was no tomorrow. At the time, I was in a different club with a professor who was very much the type of guy who was like, go compete.
Yeah.
You will learn something if you go compete. And he pushed everyone to go compete no matter what belt level you were. And I have to say, it was the best thing that I ever did. I mean, I come from a background of, like a karate background where we did tons of competitions. It was much different than jiu-jitsu though. We were in a point system. So it was much different. It wasn't full on, I'm going to put my fist through that guy's face type of thing. In jiu-jitsu, I mean, you're rolling 100% all the time.
You mean it wasn't total like Van Damme Bloodsport kind of thing?
It was not Van Damme Bloodsport. It wasn't. that would have been messed up. But I have to say that if I were to give any suggestion to any white belts that are on the fence about competing, I'm saying go for it and do it and get it out of the way when you're a white belt. Don't wait until you're blue or purple or brown even. I mean, there are people who are just not interested. And that is okay. You can go your entire jiu-jitsu journey and not compete once, and that's fine. Competition is not for everybody. Some people
I'm sure
react
it must
really
elevate
bad.
your game, though. Like,
not just elevate. Yeah, well, it does elevate your game, but
like there's a certain intensity that you're just not going to get in like a role setting.
It's not the same thing. I think it will get there. I think you get to a certain point where you compete so often where you have to see it as another role. You have to go into it, yes, be very competitive and be like, this is a competition. But when you're rolling, you're sticking to what you know. But when you first start competing, it is not that at all. It's a guy I've never met. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he's good at. I don't know what he's bad at. And we're just going to figure it out. And as a white belt, you're saying to yourself, well, I pretty much suck at everything. But I know that I have maybe 3 good things. Okay. So I would always tell people, pick 3 things that you're really, really good with.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you going to do a takedown or are you going to pull guard?
Yeah.
What is your best sweep and what's your best submission? Pick 3 things and drill those 3 things until you're white in the face. Just keep going with those 3 things. When you get to competition, at least you have a game plan, right? In competition, you always hear, coaches say, "What's your game plan? Do you have a game plan?" Some people like going into competition and they're like, "I don't have a game plan. I'm just going to do my thing." Well, in reality, that's their game plan.
Yeah.
They just naturally know what they do best and they do it. For others, you have a game plan in place because you're not an expert in everything. You say to yourself, well, in your case, I'm a big guy. Yeah. So I'm really good at sweeping people. My Kimura pretty much means I'm going to rip somebody's arm off and I'm going to take someone down. I'm just going to grab them and lift them up in the air and spin them around like a pizza and throw them on the ground. Obviously very loose examples.
Well, it's funny when you said like, how would you go through those different steps? I actually, in my head, I quickly went through like, yeah, I'd probably do this and I'd probably do that and I'd probably do that. Like, I don't think that I would pull guard, especially because if I'm competing, it's probably going to be against another big guy and I don't want that lard ass on top of me. So I would not pull guard. I'd probably try and do a takedown or whatever. And, actually, I'd probably go for some sort of Kimura from like top half or something like that.
So Jesse Byers, the next time that I go on Facebook, I should see you on some type of podium or if not, just a post saying, "Hey, I competed." Right?
Yeah, I got my ass kicked, but I did it.
That's fine too. Competition is a learning process, and you can't go into it saying to yourself all the time, like, if I didn't get gold, I'm bad at Jiu Jitsu, and I compete a lot. And I have to say, when things don't go my way, I'm not happy about it. I think
Do you berate yourself afterwards?
I have to say that I limit myself to, I'm not happy with what happened, but I take it as a learning process. So I would say after, a couple of hours, I'm good to go. I've moved on to, okay, it didn't go my way. Why didn't it go my way? I go see my professor and I say, okay, this is what happened. If he wasn't there, most of the time he's there. So if he's not there, I'll say, okay, this is what happened. I got in this position. This didn't work. Let's fine tune it. Mm-hmm. Please help me, right? And usually they're very good at spending the time with me and saying, okay, well, this didn't go well for this reason. Let's take a look at this. Oh, maybe this didn't work well, so let's put your hand here. So if they kind of fine tune my game based on how things went in competition, and even if things went really well for me and I end up winning a match, we'll just say 10-0 or winning by sub, doesn't mean that every little thing that I did was great. Mm-hmm. There's still things to work on even when things go really well. Mm-hmm. And that's what's fun about jiu-jitsu is that you're never done. Even if you're at the top and you think things are going amazing for you and you're winning every competition and you're at your gym and you're like, I could dominate all these people, at the end of the day, you still have things to learn. There's so much content that you'll never be done. I mean, you see all these black belts that have been in jiu-jitsu for, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. I mean, they're still learning things. And one thing I want to mention about learning things is that we learn a lot and people learn a lot from what white belts go through and white belt roles. And I just want to throw that out there. I mean, when I roll with, so I am a purple belt. Yeah. I'll roll with other purple belts and I will learn something right away. Right? I'll say, man, like that sweep I've been working on didn't work. I'll roll with a blue belt, same thing. Brown belt, black belt, same thing. And I think white belts, when you have white belt rolls, you learn even more about your jiu-jitsu rolling with a white belt. The reason why I say that is because white belts don't have those fundamentals. Mm-hmm. They're very sporadic, and you never know what's going to happen.
Especially
right?
newer white belts.
I can never predict what a white belt is going to do to me next.
Yeah.
I have no idea because he doesn't have the fundamentals. On a blue belt, a purple belt, a brown belt, I could say, okay, he's in my top half, so he's probably going to knee slice or he's maybe going to spin backwards. Like I know that he's going to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
A white belt doesn't know X, Y, or Z. So something's going to happen and it's going to be amazing or it's going to be super, super bad. But either way, something is going to happen and I'm going to learn something from it. So I love rolling with white belts.
I've actually been punched in the face by newer white belts just because they flail around so much. It actually happened to be like probably about a month ago. There was a new guy. It was like his second class. And so I got on my butt, but he just kept like charging back and forth, but never actually doing anything. And he was just going like back, forth, left to right, flailing his arms. And like, I was a little bit worried that he was going to like spinning back fist me or something. Like I didn't know what was going to happen, and I'm sure that I especially as a bigger guy, when I first started, I can honestly say that I was probably, flailing around like a walrus with epilepsy. But, and there were a couple of times where I did things that I really shouldn't have done, to the point where I remember one time there was a guy I was rolling with. He was a purple belt and he took my back. I was in turtle and he took my back and I didn't try to slam or anything like that. I just kind of fell backwards. But by doing that, because I later learned that you're not supposed to fall backwards, you should fall to your side. And because I'm so much bigger, I actually ended up hurting the guy. Like his back was he wasn't like injured, like nothing was broken or anything, but he had like a sore back for a few weeks and I felt really bad. And I was like, as a white belt, like that was a really big turning point for me, like to be aware of what I'm doing, like to really take stock every moment of the roll. Like, what am I doing? Let's slow it down. Let's not just flail around, aimlessly. It was a turning point. It was like, okay, let's think about what I'm doing. A, there are things that I shouldn't do because it's impolite. And B, there are things that I shouldn't do because they're not productive. And that was a big issip.
Do you have any submissions that are like your go-to right now as a white belt? That's what I do most of the time.
Kimuras.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because I would often find myself in like top side control, and I would oftentimes try to at least get the Kimura grip. I didn't always finish it. I still don't always finish it, but I think I've practiced that so much that I can honestly say that I can grab a Kimura grip pretty quickly. Sometimes quick enough that people don't actually see it coming. So if I'm proud of anything, the singular thing that I'm proud of in this last year and a half is I can grab a Kimura grip pretty quickly. And that's probably like, I'll usually do that. And if it's not working, I'll switch it to like an arm bar, which I'm still not good at finishing. So that's yet another thing that I'm working on. I have a long list of things that I'm working on. If you were to see like my jiu-jitsu playlist on YouTube, it's very long. Most of it is not useful.
I was about to say, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I mean, we spoke about it on other shows too, about, going on YouTube and researching videos, and is there any, usefulness to it, and at what level is it useful? Do you find yourself researching videos and techniques quite a bit?
A lot.
Or?
When I first started, I would try to watch like 30 videos a night. I'm like, I'm going to learn so fast. I'm going to be so amazing in like no time. And then I realized that everything just becomes convoluted in your brain, and it's actually the total opposite of constructiveness. So now I do watch videos. I should probably clean out my playlist a little bit though. But what I'll do is, if I know that I'm having a very specific problem, like I was having a problem recently, like people getting stuck in people's side control and how to get out of that. So I'm like, okay, I'm having a problem with this. So let me only look at videos for this. Let me not look at the overly complicated videos where people are like flipping over and doing inversions and berimbolo this. And I can't do that. I don't even know what it is. So let me just focus on small problems, and let me work through this problem. Like, I know a lot of people who watch tons and tons of videos, and if I could, it's not really that helpful, because you just end up with just a jumble of nonsense in your brain. So if I watch videos, I watch them constructively. I only watch maybe 3 or 4 jiu-jitsu channels specifically, because just trial and error. They're the ones that I like the most. And I'll research very specific things. And I try not to go down the YouTube rabbit hole.
So where do you find your jiu-jitsu is going now? So your plan for the next, I don't know, I was about to say 6 months, but your plan for the next week as a white belt. So do you have a mental plan in your head of where do you want to go next with your jiu-jitsu as a white belt? That's a no.
Do I have a concrete plan? No, I probably should. It's like day to day. Like I'll work on a problem until it's no longer as big of a problem, So I'll do it that way. Like I'm always trying to fine tune little things. Like I think I've gotten as for a white belt at least. I think I've become pretty decent as a white belt, as far as white belts are concerned. But like I said, if I have to work on anything, I'm going to continue to work on my half guard, my bottom half guard. But beyond that, no. It's just day to day.
Day to day.
I mean, I'm not this world champion. I don't have lofty aspirations of.
But you could be super heavyweight. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, there's the other problem is, like, if I do go to a competition, who the hell am I going to compete against? Guys my size are not exactly, lining up to do jiu-jitsu competitions.
That's true.
I'm either going to end up with nobody, or I'm going to end up with that one mutant who's like 6'9" and 450 pounds, and then I'm like, well, I'm going to die.
I guess in a way that's motivation to say, hey, I'm going to stick to doing jiu-jitsu. I'm going to stick to my diet. I'm going to keep cutting weight. So that way I could kind of fall into a different weight division. So that sounds like a plan to me.
That would be ideal.
That is a plan.
Okay, so if I had to have one plan, it would be that. So I'd like to say, if I had a plan by, we're November. I'd like to, by, let's say, next June, July, get down to, like, let's say maybe 250.
And then compete.
And maybe compete.
You've heard it on the show, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to put a tracker. We are going to follow this guy. Guys, go on Facebook, Jesse Byers. Go at him. He tells me that his social media is horrible. He never posts anything. He posts when he goes on vacation, and that's about it. But we're going to hold him to his word. So we're going to follow you from now. Hopefully by next year, you will have had lost more weight, which I'm sure you're going to do.
Hopefully I'll suck a lot less.
And compete, which I think is just going to bring you to another level. Jesse, I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
White belts do have something to say, ladies and gentlemen. All you guys out there who are not putting white belts on your podcast, I'm telling you, you're not doing anyone a service. Put some white belts on your podcast. They have something to say for everyone, and everyone can take a little bit from it. Jesse, I appreciate you being here, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu with Raymond Terrence. Go follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. Turn on notifications and press that like button. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the mats.